Now, in case you've never seen Adventure, this whole series of events is obviously a ripoff of the Skull Greymon episode in Adventure, where Tai, also in a desperate situation, tries to force Agumon to digivolve into the next level, and also gets a nightmarish creature that runs rampant and just only wants to destroy things. And that also traumatizes Tai. Now, you may have gotten the impression in past episodes I've done that I just hate it whenever a season rehashes an old idea and tries to claim it as its own. And that is true. I do like to see seasons take risks and try new things instead of just relying on like what they know worked in the past. And I give credit to seasons, even seasons I don't like, for doing that. In fact, that's one of the big reasons why I like this season so much. It just changes so many things. But anyway, I am also okay with a season using an idea that was used in the past as long as they add to it and make it better or make it work better. I mean, my big complaint was with you from Cross Wars wasn't so much that he was a ripoff of Ken. It was the fact that he was a really poor ripoff of Ken. The execution that they had was a lot worse than 02. Not a lot I thought was added to you to make him his own character. In fact, his character just largely relied on a lot of similar imagery and events that made Ken so popular. But this ripoff of the Skull Greymon episode does manage to change enough things and improve upon the idea that was originally formed in Adventure that it does work well. And I still would have liked to see something new, but it definitely works very well for the season, and I like it. Just a few things to mention on what it improved on. First off, the situation that forces Takato to force Digivolve Guilmon is a lot more dire and a lot more drastic than what forced Tai to do it. You see, Tai was just trying to Digivolve Agumon to, in a way, sequence break Digimon. Because Tai basically figured out that, well, I'm the leader, so if my Digimon digivolves first, that means we'll be one step closer to ending this adventure and getting home. So then Tai just starts stealing everybody's food and force-feeding it into Agumon, and Agumon just gets basically so abused that when he's in this fight with another Greymon, he just digivolves into this horrible creature. But even then, the maximum amount of damage that's done is that they destroyed the evil Greymon, and Skull Greymon just ran around a little bit and knocked some stuff over. What brought upon Guilmon's dark evolution is a lot more drastic. It was the death of a comrade mixed with the emotional just breakdown and distress of Jerry, mixed with the knowledge that Beelzemon is just going to stroll over there and kill you, and you are absolutely helpless to stop it because your Digimon are not strong enough. So Takato is more thrust into a bad situation while Tai created his through poor leadership and overall just terrible decisions. And while Takato's decision to force Digivolve Guilmon was temporary lapse in judgment due to emotional circumstances, Tai did it largely almost as sort of a game, or at least he is a lot more playful about it. I mean, throwing himself into danger and stuff like that. And also there's a lot more symbolic stuff going on here and a lot more background, background information at play here. Because like I said, this whole time Takato was trying to prevent this exact thing from happening. It was his deepest fear right from the beginning that he would lose Guilmon, and it was in this momentary lapse of judgment due to this blind hatred of Beelzemon that he not only allowed Guilmon to turn into this monster, but in many ways he actually wished it. And Takato immediately realizes his mistake and gets emotionally chewed out by Jerry.
I just can't take any more, Takato. I can't.
I know, I don't like it either.
Stop! Huh? Don't come near me. Guilmon was so sweet and cute, and look what you did to him.
Huh?
That's pretty harsh. And his Digivice shatters, symbolizing his failure as a tamer, to add insult to injury. And as I mentioned back during the plot summary, Even this evil evolution is no match for Beelzemon, as he does manage to defeat it. And by the way, I do know the evil evolution of Guilmon's name. It's Magidramon. Thank you for pointing that out in the comments. But anyway, Takato now has to go reconcile with the unconscious and possibly dead Guilmon. And then we have this like reconciliation dream thing, kind of similar to the thing Tai went through in that Cave of Wonders. But this like is a lot creepier and darker. And while it is a better reconciliation dream than Tai's and has a better outcome, I just still don't really like this sequence. Because the sequence is basically asking Takato, do you love this Guilmon, or would you want to trade in for a better Guilmon, or something? It's not really clear, because that was never, if I can remember properly, that was never like a thing that Takato was ever contemplating. You know, getting a new Digimon, or a better Guilmon. And Takato always just seemed to value Guilmon as a friend and not just a Digimon. So this dream sequence is kind of addressing what I think is a non-issue. But this scene does try to be very creepy and dark, but it fails because whenever I see those stupid spinning Guilmon models in the background, I cannot help but laugh. I know you're trying to be all symbolic and stuff, but it looks it looks stupid. But anyway, Takato and Guilmon reconcile. Takato gets a new Digivice, and they fuse into one symbiotic creature to symbolize their true bond as friends, and they have a really stupid voice. And that is pretty much the end of that relationship arc. I guess the last thing I could talk about before my final thoughts is what I thought about the evolutions. I just want to say I really do like Guilmon's design as a rookie level Digimon. It's cute, it's inviting, but at the same time you can tell it could fight. And I like the little, what are those, bat wings on its head? I don't know, I like those things. I think they look pretty cool. Then you've got its evolution, Growlmon. It is pretty much just a bigger version of Guilmon with a mullet. So I don't like it as much, but there's not a lot to it. And then there's War Growlmon. This thing is horrible. It is a giant mess of just, I don't even know. It's got like claws and blades on its arms and missiles and a stupid looking jetpack on the back of it. And it's got a metal jaw. And it's got like a metal tail coming out. I don't know what that is. Anyway, it's obviously trying to look like Metal Greymon, but it's not as jank as Metal Greymon. Like, Metal Greymon looked just completely ghetto. With its like chest plates and its metal arm, it looked like it was a mishmash and Frankenstein creation that was almost just barely keeping itself together. The metal in the design looks too clean cut to pull that off. I think it looks really unappealing. The Guilmon design, though, I think it looks really good. It's clean, it looks well put together. I mean, he's got a cool cape, he's got a cool shield, he's got a cool lance. I do like the white design on him as like the color scheme. My only complaint with it is that the little red Guilmon on the top of its helmet looks a little silly. But it is pretty much the only thing tying it to the past evolutions. Other than that, I think I'm just gonna give final thoughts on the two of them. Okay, let's do it now. Let's be a little honest about what this season is kind of about. It's a coming-of-age story, in some ways, about a boy and, well, in some ways, his pet. I was gonna say boy and his dog, but Guilmon's not a dog. Not sure if you noticed or not. Anyway, like I said, the show largely focuses for a good chunk of the story on the development of Takato and his growth as a leader and as an individual into a more mature state. Like, Takato's change in character isn't like a complete 180. It's not like he starts off as this dorky, dweeby character, and then by the end is this total and complete badass. No, he still is, at heart, a dork and the same character he was before. But you can definitely tell that Takato has matured over the course of this adventure. Sometimes in just very subtle ways. He still has awkward moments, even at the end of the season, but I kind of wouldn't have it any other way. Those are some of the parts that really kind of connect to me. Because I'm kind of an awkward kid. And I did like Takato. I did want him to succeed in his adventure, and I actually did give a crap about him. Which is a lot more than I could say for some other characters in this series. So overall, I like Takato. I like his relationship with Guilmon. It's very interesting to see, the show try to push, like I said, these sort of relationships with their Digimon and explore them more. I felt like it was kind of touched upon in 02 with Ken and Wormmon, and then this season just kind of expanded on it. But at the same time, I do have a couple complaints involving these two. The first one is that because of the way that the show is trying to structure the main group, try to make it more equal for the kids in it, give them more equal power, sometimes it could make Takato seem like he doesn't even really belong, or he doesn't really have a role in the group. Because throughout the story, he never overtly exerts himself as the leader, and for the first part of the story, doesn't really know what's going on with like all the Digimon, and is just, like I said, trying to play catch up with everybody else. It makes his role in the group seem very questionable at times. Like, Henry's obviously the brains, and Rika's pretty much the fighter, and I guess Takato could be defined as the moral glue that holds the whole group together. I don't know if that is really Takato's role. I'm just assuming or making assumptions on this, because that idea is never really explored. Like, there's not a lot of scenes where it's just Henry and Rika and not Takato. It's usually either just Henry and Takato or all three of them. And I would have really liked to see how the writers thought the group would interact without Takato around or in it, and maybe show like Henry and Rika don't really get along when, put together, and Takato has to act as a mediator between the two to keep the group together. I don't know, that's just me making stuff up out of thin air right now. But with Henry, trying to figure out like the philosophical beliefs of the digital world or whatever, and Rika just going off and doing her own thing, it sometimes seems like Takato and Guilmon's role in the group, other than developing their own characters and own relationships, is actually just providing really awkward comic relief. And that could be funny at times, awkward people doing awkward things, but it still just doesn't really feel right. And besides, they just get outshined by Terriermon anyway, who is pretty much the main comic relief of this show. I feel like this is just gonna be a main running theme with this show, is that for a large chunk of it, it's lacking story direction. It has character direction with Takato, Rika, Henry, all that stuff, but it's lacking, for the first part of the story, it's just lacking a direct villain that the kids are fighting, which means that they just, a lot of times, will wander off and just have pointless little mini-adventures and just wander around aimlessly. So that's just going to be a general complaint I'm going to bring up now so that I don't have to bring it up later when I talk about the other characters. A clear, concrete villain that the kids are fighting would have definitely helped. But we'll talk about it later when we get to Yamaki. But that's going to be a little while. I just want to say, sorry I haven't made a video in a while. Obviously I've been very busy with the holidays and finishing finals. But next time, we are going to talk about Henry and Terriermon. And I also wanted to say, Merry Christmas and have a wonderful New Year. Bye.
He's Mr. Snow. He's Mr. Icicle. He's Mr. Tenderloin.